This is Dan with LearningCameras.com, and we're going to do a hardware look at the Nikon D600 and some of the ways that it feels in the hand and compares to the Canon 7D, which is about the same size. It's the closest that Canon has for the same size for the time being until the Canon 6D comes out. It's going to be a likely upgrade point from Canon users. For Nikon users, the D7000 is even more like the D600, and that will be even a more logical upgrade point. Now on the back of the device, we'll see a familiar layout on the left side, the only difference being really that the zoom controls are going to be located on there as well. That is absolutely fine by me. All of your operation controls are on the right. That is also nice. The ISO and white balance are over here as well, which I do kind of like them being on the right side. I find this being nice that all of my controls are here and my playback controls are over here. So I kind of wish they had gone with that route. The overall feel, there is much less of a thumb grip than there is on the Canon. The reason for that is because of where you hold your thumb. On the Canon, it's more inside the camera. It's very grippy, and it's good for the focus system, but changing your controls down here can need to move the camera out of your hand. Now in the Nikon, your scroll wheel is right here. It is a little bit easier to reach with your thumb when you are operating the camera. However, the thumb grip is much smaller, and it's a little bit easier to lose control of the camera with this. Now with a battery grip, it might help a little bit. On the top, you do have a locking dial and a secondary locking dial. The lock on the top, it's pretty easy to press, similar to the 5D Mark III, similar to the 60D. The only downside with this lock is that the button is a little small, but other than that, it's not too bad. You get pretty used to it. The lock on the secondary dial is a little bit harder to press. It's a very small button, and it's very difficult to get with one hand. It's a little bit easier with two hands. But this is a dial I wish that Canon had, because it is a dial that I use often, switching between shooting styles, quiet, fast, timers. All of that is very easily accessible in the Nikon. Not so much in the Canon. You have to go into some of your controls. Now, on the front of the device, we do find some more buttons than the Canon has. Both of these have a pop-up flash right here, and you do have a bracket button which will control all your bracketing for white balance or exposure on the Nikon. That is very nice. The Canon's is buried into the menu. I do appreciate having an actual button for that. Also, you have both the FN button, a function button, and a depth of field preview button as well, both of which are programmable to other things. On the Canon, the depth of preview button is right here, and it is also programmable. I have it programmed to switch from continuous focus to single focus. The function button is up on the top right here. On the Nikon, I do find that it'll take some time to get used to those buttons. They are accessible from your fingers, which isn't bad. On the Canon, it's a little more accessible, being right there. On the Nikon, that's basically where your video function is. On the Canon, it is back in here, which I do like the placement there. Not too bad. On the Nikon, your video functions are going to be controlled right here. Not a bad location as well. Now you do lose some controls on the Nikon that the Canon does have access to directly, and the one is the light, which is now controlled in the on-off button, and the other, some of your drive modes, but that's now controlled on the dial, so that's not a big deal. The white balance is on the left side of the camera. I did say I don't like that as much. Now when we look here, the Canon has a single CF card slot. The Nikon has a dual SD card slot. That is very nice. I do appreciate that a lot. Everything else is very, very similar on it. On the left side, these flip doors are much nicer on the Nikon. You also have a headphone jack, HDMI out. All of those are very welcome controls. On the Canon, you have to flip this out. This one also doesn't have, does have HDMI, it doesn't have a headphone out. Other than that though, you do have your other controls. So that is a look around the device. Let me think anything else. They both do have pop-up flashes. The Nikon is, let me take the battery out of the Canon. The Canon is a little bit heavier. Let me not compare weights right now because they both have different lenses on them. So overall, the general feel is good on the Nikon. I can't say it feels extremely robust. The Canon might feel a tiny bit better, but not a ton. It's a very, very similar feel to both of the cameras. Yeah, it's a very similar feel, not a lot of difference. The Nikon screen is very large compared to the Canon, and also the viewfinder is much larger than the Canon as far as what you can see in it. And so those are all very welcome adjustments. I did also want to slip in a comparison with the lens on here. We'll take the 7D out because that really doesn't matter. The kit lens to this is a 24-85. It's a very stiff lens. It is pretty hard to move. I do appreciate that Nikon actually includes a lens hood as well as a small case with their lens. Canon does not do that in any of their basic lenses. Everything feels very firm and nice. The overall feel of the lens is good. It's pretty lightweight. It's actually fairly small considering what it is. And the only thing I'd say is it doesn't look extremely professional in comparison to like the Canon 24-105. This looks like it could be more of a basic kit lens than a lens on a $2,700 camera system. So I just wanted to add that with the lens in there. It is very stiff. You would not want to use this for video. It's at least for zooming while video, but it does have stabilization. It's not a bad lens, and I do appreciate the hood. Thank you on Nikon for that. Any lens for Canon that includes that costs upwards of about $1,000 on almost all of them. So let me know if you have any more questions on any of those.